Welcome to the Sky Sports Cricket Podcast. We are recording this on the Monday after South Africa won the World Test Championship final, and obviously a few days before that iconic series between England and India. It's been a year of firsts, hasn't it? Wins for South Africa, as we've just seen, first time in 27 years in a senior ICC event, and PSG, Tottenham, and of course, how can we forget? We can't forget because he's on screen with his RCB top on, the man himself, Dinesh Karthik. Many, many congratulations, DK. I know we take the mick, but that must have meant a lot to you and a lot to the fans of RCB.
Yes, it was. It was quite the journey. 18 years teams had to wait. I remember the speech given by Mo Bobat at the end saying it was probably one of the most anticipated victories in sport for a long time. That team has gone through a lot. It's seen a lot of superstars, it's seen a lot of victories, a lot of losses as well, heartbreaks. But to wait 18 years, it was very special. And I think the team in itself did a fabulous job. Now, I wore this RCB jersey just to commemorate this podcast because I know you both are big fans of RCB for a very long time. So I just thought I'll rub it in a little bit before I get into my usual attire. But you guys keep talking, I'll change and come. I don't think me changing is the prettiest picture going around. So give me a second. This is just to commemorate. Let me make it sure. Immortalize it in the Sky Cricket podcast before we get back to regular things.
Where's he gone? He just got up and walked off.
Changing his shirt now. Does he know this is an audio thing that people won't see?
Let's hope you don't go through every IPL franchise that you've played in, because we could be here a while. So, okay, you're back in a completely different top, a top that we're used to seeing you in. Tell us, DK, what do you think, if you had to put your finger on it, what do you think made the difference this year for RCB men?
Right at the auction, the kind of team we picked, we covered a lot of bases. We saw what RCB did in the past, and we tried to correct a few things that they had done, which is sometimes have a very strong batting unit but a very ordinary bowling unit. The experience across players as well. So those kind of small things we gave a lot of importance to. If you do look at our team, we had a very strong Indian core with what was left. You got to understand there were a lot of retentions. So we lost a lot of the good players. So in that set of players who were available, we tried and picked the strongest core. So then we had to understand there were certain players that we couldn't go for. And then we had to pick players who are probably not big on stature or name, but people who are effective. So we kind of went through that path. For example, we knew we couldn't get a Shreyas Iyer or a Shreyas or a Rishabh Pant. So we were looking at what are the options that we have. And Jitesh Sharma, there couldn't be anybody better in that middle order. So examples like that.
Can I ask about Andy Flower, who's got a fantastic record as a franchise coach, T20 coach? What kind of impact has he had? And B, what are his strengths and why has he got such a good record? Or is it just a fluke?
He's won one too many titles for it to be a fluke. I really feel among the coaches that I worked with, he's the most meticulous, dedicated, hardworking, attention to detail. Look, what he does is he doesn't micromanage. That's something I really enjoyed about him. He set the ground rules very early, saying, I'm the lead coach. I'll be looking around the whole team, but y'all are the specialist coaches. This is what I expect out of you. And there used to be meetings before every practice session as to how we need to handle every player, what we need to be speaking. The language was consistent. It is definitely not fluke because his method is very strong, one that he genuinely believes in. And the Mo Bobat Andy Flower combination is here to stay. They make quite a formidable pair because of the way they think about the game. Mo is a bit different at times, whereas Andy Flower is orthodox. And both of them kind of form a very good pair together, strong pair together. But the one thing that is their strength, I believe, is their clarity in communication. That I believe really helped the players in whatever they've set out to achieve.
I was speaking to you, DK, in the 100, I think, in the pod last summer, and you were looking forward to the gig, and you were looking forward to coaching and being a mentor because I think you feel that that's where your future lies. That's for you. What is your style of coaching? What did you add to this RCB side?
Are you trying to say he's a no good commentator, Ness?
No, because we were discussing this in the pod, and it surprised me because we have great fun with him and we enjoy working with him. But what surprised me was you thought you would be a good coach. And what have you added to the team?
I think that's a good question to Andy Flower, but I'll tell you my philosophy of coaching, which is to try and make an impact with the player, either technically or if I can help him tactically. If I'm not able to get through in both those areas, which happens with a few players, then at least make them understand the game from a different point of view. And if there is enough time, imbibe certain values that I feel has helped me in the sport. So that was my mission statement at the get-go. But what I brought to the table for this year was a bit of relevance. I just played the sport, so I understood it. And what Andy Flower and Mo Babat probably didn't have is ground knowledge, because I was out there playing with, for example, on Hazelwood. I was out there playing with Rajat Patidar. So what is their strengths? How can we get someone to complement their strengths? That is what I brought to the table, I felt.
Can you tell us about Jacob Bethell, who's obviously an RCB player? We'll come on to the India series in a bit, but there's a big debate to be had and a big decision for England to make. Just put that to one side for a minute. What were your impressions of young Jacob Bethell?
First up, I always admire people who stay out of their comfort zones. At a very young age, to move from Barbados to England just to pursue cricket and pursue it seriously is a big step, because you got to understand, I was studying in Kuwait as well for a time. I know how hard it is to shift countries, be without parents at times, and then play the sport. That in itself is something I admired him. Now, that was before meeting him. I had watched him a little bit in the 100 playing for the Birmingham Phoenix. That's where I caught sight on him. And Mo Bobat had actually watched him grow from being a 14-year-old into whatever he is today as a player. So there was enough intel on the player. Now, when I started interacting with him, I realized why he is so special. A, he is very good at absorbing information. B, the clarity towards how he wants to practice to get that information across on the ground. For example, in England, a lot of spinners are told about overspin, which where the wrist goes like this. He hadn't even heard of side spin. He was bowling overspin all the time. And when the spin bowling coach Marlowe spoke to him about side spin, he was able to grasp it so quickly and straight away bring it in from day one in the practice sessions and then in the practice matches. He didn't bowl in the game, but I did see him bowl against West Indies and he was using it. Just as an example, he's able to transfer information given to him, absorb it and see if it suits him and take it into match play very quickly, which is quite a skill to have.
And the skipper, you mentioned him there, Rajat Patidar. It's not easy coming in and captaining such a massive franchise with such massive names and coaches with a massive ego like you. What did you do so well?
The two things I really admired in him, Nas. I generally like to joke about these things, but this time I'll try and keep a straight face while saying it. I feel the first aspect is when any person gets a little bit of power. I mean, being a captain, you are given a power. Like you were a spoiled man, Nasser Hussain, but Rajat Patidar, even after being given the powers of a captain, was exactly the same that he was before he got it as a player. For example, he would go and sit with the same set of players. He would go and have dinners with the same kind of people. And at any point, like he could have said, I want an extra net session. I want this. Nothing of that sort. He would come in where he is required and just stay out of it and allow others to do whatever they are good at. That is one. And two, which I feel is a very big skill. RCB is a high pressure environment. We almost all games are sold out and all of that. And there are numerous times during the tournament we were put under pressure as a bowling unit. The amount of calmness that he brought to the table at that point of time, it wasn't so much messaging, but it was just bowlers gave us feedback saying when we get hit for a boundary, when we turn around and look at him, it almost feels like everything is okay. It's an event that was probably bound to happen. Don't worry. What's your next step? And you would ask that question, they would give an answer. He would say, okay, let's do this, or probably say, okay, let's go ahead with what you thought. And then he would just get into that game phase, which I really like about him, because in IPL, because of it being manic at times, people tend to panic. I thought that was a very, very useful skill to have. It's probably his character trait, but it was something that was very evident in the time he led the team.
Before we move on from IPL, I want to make two observations. Before the final, I predicted that if RCB won, you would be right at the front holding the trophy, which turned out to be true, and Virat Kohli was right at the back. But you raised up the trophy. And secondly, in that final, what I noticed was in a strategic timeout, you spent a long time telling Virat Kohli what to do. He was at the crease, and you spent a long time. I saw you there pointing at him, and I think he was out the very next over after your after your 5-minute lecture. Tell me what you said to him.
Uh, this is probably the hardest question I've been asked on a podcast. The first part, at least I can manage. The second part, I'm trying to think without getting scarred for my life. I need to say the right answer. What did you think I was telling him, considering he got out the next over?
Well, I don't know. I just thought, what is this man telling one of the greatest batters that has ever walked the earth? What can he possibly be telling him? And then I thought, well, whatever he told him didn't work because he was out the very next over.
Uh, I really don't have a memory of
I think
whatever
this is the first time ever that you haven't got an answer. You're silent.
I'm very sure Virat Kohli will be watching this podcast and then recollecting what I told him and seeing if there's any factual evidence as to what I'm saying here today to what I said that day, because clearly, like you said, it hasn't worked. But in all fairness, he was nice to me. I'll try and chalk out the nicest answer politically possible. I think he was nice to me during the time. And at that point of time, all I said was, we probably need another 80 runs. And you need to probably
Were
try
you
and score.
telling him he was batting too slowly?
No, actually, in big games, I did realize the one thing that Virat Kohli does is he takes it upon himself to be that guy to get that big score. So in a way, the way he was batting was slightly different to what he was batting in the league stages. So he thought, let me try and take on the bowlers that I know that I can with very little risk, which worked out well for us because on that pitch, and this happened a couple of times in this tournament, there were certain pitches which wasn't easy for batting. For example, Bangalore. We got out for 90 once. We got out for, I think, 65 or 70. We were tottering for 6 in one stage. So after those 2 games, he kind of took it upon himself to say, I will be the guy who will go and try and bat for a certain period of time. But he batted with great intent, and that helped us. Now, in this game, the pitch, everybody thinks it was 210, 220 pitch. I genuinely don't think so, because I remember the batters walking out saying from length, it's hard to hit. And Virat Kohli, yes, he would have probably wanted to hit a couple of boundaries, and that's what he had planned. And he had told me, saying, from this over on, I'm going to go full throttle. But, as luck would have it, my information didn't get across. And but we ended up getting a score where I remember Josh Hazelwood, soon after the innings got over, saying, DK, this is a good score. I think we'll definitely make a match out of it. So the mood in the camp was, I think we've got a good score. Obviously, add the pressure, a final, all of that also.
Okay, that's enough of the me from DK and how I won and how I told Virat Kohli how to bat. Let's look back at this week. It's been a great week. Myself and DK were working on the World Test Championship final. You were writing on it. What did you make of it? Because I have to say it was one of the most enjoyable 4 days I have witnessed. 2 neutral sides playing at Lord's, and the atmosphere there was absolutely brilliant. I don't know what you made of it.
Yeah, I wasn't part of the elite commentary team, obviously, but I was there, and I thoroughly enjoyed the occasion. I mean, the UK is a good place for neutral games, isn't it? Because London, the city, has a lot of Australians, a lot of South Africans. There is an inbuilt love for Test cricket, so all that. Plus, I think the prices were had been brought down a little bit. They were pretty reasonable, so we had good crowds for 3 or 4 days. Great atmosphere, as you say. Most neutrals, I think, wanting South Africa to win. And there were more South Africans in the ground than Australians as well. But I think the neutrals wanted the underdog to win. And also, I felt that people want a vibrant, competitive world game, not just a world game with kind of 2 or 3 competitive teams. So for all those reasons, I felt there was an inbuilt kind of desire to see South Africa win. And not many people expected them to win. So a fantastic performance from Temba Bavuma. I mean, it's a great story. I remember after after he got that 100 in 2016 at Newlands against England. I went to Langer, the township where he's from, the day after and spent most of the morning there, and it was a delightful morning. But you get a sense of what that story is, because as he said after the game, you can't really write it. When he was born in Langer, the thought of him then captaining South Africa to the World Test Championship final at Lords, it's just an amazing story. So absolutely fantastic. And I was interested to watch Australia, because obviously with that context of the Ashes coming down the line, I felt there was some optimism there from England's point of view looking at Australia as well.
Tell us, we have to decide on the Player of the Match award between Markram and Rabada. Do you think we went the right way? They were two unbelievable performances, weren't they? I mean, the Markram chase under pressure was top notch.
I think you probably got it right, although I hate to say it. I mean, they were of equal merit, weren't they? Rabada 9 wickets, just falling one short of Mackay Antini, if you remember, on that ground in 2003. Kind of set the game up in the first innings, but they were so far behind the game, and a fourth innings 100 like that under pressure, probably I would have said Markram myself, but you can't forget Rabada, who is an outstanding fast bowler, I think.
What did you
There
make
was
of
a
that
hung
knock?
jury for a bit, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And
What did you make?
Classic bowler batter split.
no, interestingly, all of us felt it should be split between the both, Markram and Rabada. But at some point, I think the message came down that choose one, can't give it to both. So there was back and forth a bit. As I looked at it, I said what Rabada was special was that second innings, having 75 behind, again to have that belief when the conditions were probably not as good as day one, still to come back and pick those wickets, great. But I tilted towards Markram purely because fourth inning, South Africa hasn't won a world title in about under 3 decades. The amount of pressure, he's been the captain of the T20 team, he's lost out there, putting everything into context, I felt that was special because it wasn't about batting for 1 hour. It was about batting 4 hours, 5 hours, and he did that quite nicely.
And as a neutral, tell us about Australia. I mean, obviously the Ashes is coming up. Lots of focus here in England about Australia. Where do they sit as a team, DK?
As I look at it, they are a team that is slightly in the verge of trying to phase out a few players, but I don't think they completely believe in the quality of the younger players coming through. I know you are asking Haydos as to what his Ashes starting 11 would be, and he named about 13 players, and he wasn't sure which way to go after a point because he said, I like these players, but I will wait and watch till the Caribbean series ends for me to give a concrete picture as to what I feel the starting 11 should be. So at this point of time, there's plenty of doubts, more so in the batting department. They're not sure about a Manas. They're not sure about how long Khwaja is going to be there. And obviously, there is the likes of Cameron Green, who didn't have his best game. So if he's not bowling, do they go back to a Bo Webster? So questions like these, they are not fully assured walking into that Ashes test as to what the 11 could be. As of today, things could change post the Caribbean. The one thing that they're sure of is they've got 4 gun fast bowlers. Add Scott Boland. So they've got 4 gun fast bowlers and a high quality spinner. Now, a lot of them in their mid-30s. Now, that is a question for them as well. How they're going to phase out the players and how Australian cricket's future would be later on. But just looking at the Ashes, I think they have a lot of questions, just like England have, I feel, walking into their Ashes.
Do you agree with all that? The batting lineup is a concern?
I do agree with all that. Yeah, I mean, there's two sides of it. England have got to get their act together and make sure they get to Australia, with a settled team and all their fast bowlers fit and firing. And that will the India series, which we'll come on to, will give us a better idea of that. But I think if you just look at purely Australia, I agree with all that. I think there's question marks about the batting, about Khawaja at the top of the order. And who's going to open? Is he going to make the Ashes? Who's going to open? Who's going to be 3? If you've got question marks over your top 3, that's a massive thing for any test side. Obviously, Smith and Head kind of bankers in that middle order. And the bowling, it was outstanding in that first innings. But they are of an age, as DK says. And I wrote a piece before the game, actually, around that age profile of their attack, and just kind of drawing the comparison with somebody like Jason Gillespie, who came to England in 2005, absolutely at the top of his game, one of the world's best. He was only 30, and he's very different because he'd had a load of injuries. But, quickly dropped off his performance, 2 or 3 tests into the series, and he was left out for the Trent Bridge test, I think. It can happen quickly at that age. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it can happen quickly. So I think there's a lot of optimism there for England if they get themselves, in the right place to take advantage of those things, and that's an unknown. But yeah, absolutely, I think there are questions to answer for Australia.
Now, the biggest question I feel is that as I sit here, the one thing that a confident Australian team would do is see what their strengths are. And I know they don't have too much access to pitch preparation, but say England likes to play on flat pitches. They'd probably give pitches which help the fast bowlers a little bit more. But right now, with their top 3 not being sure, that is a worry. You can't do that. Even though tactically it makes sense to put England's batters under pressure, I don't think they'd be able to do it that with a free mind because they're not sure of themselves.
I don't know what you think, Nas, but as a captain, one of the first things I'd look at is in the opposition is do we feel we can get 20 wickets here? Because obviously you need 20 wickets to get a test match, and without saying back in our day or whatever, there was some Australian teams that we played against. In fact, most of the time that we played against them, you'd look at that top 7 and you'd think, blimey, this is going to be hard work to get 20 wickets. Whereas England can get Wood and Archer and these guys fit, and they go with a strong group of fast bowlers. You look down that lineup, as was in the World Test Championship. It may look very different come the first Ashes Test, but you'd say to yourself, well, there's an opportunity here as captain.
Yeah, and I guess DK's point is if they do prepare pitches with a bit of spice in it, Pat Cummins will be thinking the same about the England batting lineup of those seamers going against England. But I agree with him. This was Matthew Hayden. When I asked Matthew Hayden 10 years ago, if I'd asked Matthew Hayden, name your side for the Ashes, he'd have just gone boom, boom, like that. He went 1, 2, and then he stopped, and then he went back to 1, and then he got them all in, but he had them in the wrong order. And then we had to remind him that he'd left out, Marnus Labuschagne or Steve Smith or whoever. So they are in a very interesting place. Khawaja is not looking the player that he once was. Marnus is not looking the player. Marnus, that ball he nicked in the second innings. And I know DK and Sean Pollock had some thoughts on his back lift and the curve of his bat, but he would have driven that ball away. When he was averaging 50 odd in Test match cricket, he'd have just driven that through cover, wide mid off for 4. So he's got a few technical issues. So yeah, I completely agree with that. But I still think their bowling attack is absolutely gun bowling attack. I just want to ask DK, because I've touched on it before the test, about the format, about where Test cricket is, about the World Test Championship. South Africa don't play a Test match at home. Is it 16 months after they don't play a Test match? Is that right? And what can be done, should be done? Your country, India, hold all, if not most of the cards. Should they be doing more for countries like South Africa and others who struggle financially putting on Test matches?
At the outset, I'll say it's very sad that a South African team isn't going to be playing in their own summer, which is, I can't believe it for a start, but that's how the FTP is panned out. I have thought about this question for a long, long time. Not that anybody's asked me, but now that you asked me, I'll tell you. I feel there are very few countries which can afford to host Test matches. And I know for a fact, Athers is probably a lot better informed in this subject, but I'll give you my 2 cents. I feel the 5 Test match series should be probably between 3 countries, India, Australia, and England. And there should be 2 levels, 6 test playing nations in Group A, Group B, probably the other 6. Now, I feel this Group B should probably have 4-day Test matches. It'll be slightly easier on the pocket as well. And I think it makes sense for them to play that well. And then one team comes in, and then the other team there at the bottom comes back into Group B. That sort of a setup is good. And the teams that, for example, South Africa, New Zealand, all of them, if they're happy to play 3 Test match series, I think that is a good way to go about it, because the fact, as we sit here today, not many countries are able to hold first-class cricket. That is a fact. Everybody is not able to afford it. And that's why you see with the influx of franchisees and the kind of payments that they are able to give out, a lot of players are getting tempted, and you can't fault them. It is out there for them. It what is quite obvious for me is a lot of mediocre players, no offense, but a lot of mediocre players today can earn a lot more than what they could have done in what they could have done a couple of decades ago, because a lot of them would be only aspiring to play for the country, and they'll be in and out. Today, if they're given a year-round contract with a certain franchisee, why not? Why will they go through the rigors of trying to make it to the national team when they know they're assured of a certain pay packet for 12 months of the year? The good ones have a decision to make, and there are very few of those. For example, Kane Williamson is a great example. For so long, he was completely with New Zealand, but when he's come to a stage when he realizes, okay, I need to prioritize certain things in my life, he said, thank you, I don't want the central contract, but I'm happy to play Test cricket for you, but I'll do it when I feel like. Let me know if you're interested. Now, that was a big one for me. Trent Bolt, Kane Williamson, people like that. For a lot of the other ones, I completely understand. Some might not even make it to certain teams of theirs, certain formats. So those are the big ones. And coming back to South Africa, the FTP, there's also a lot of talk about how South Africa had it easy. But I must say that they made the effort to go to certain countries and play, which certain teams don't. And they obviously got the fruits of that. And it is not their fault that when this World Test Championship idea came about, the FTP was already set up to 2027. So it was always going to happen, and they made the most of it. But it was good that on a one-off test match against Australia, they showed how good they could be in a neutral venue as well.
I mean, I said, could India do more? What about the ICC? Should the ICC be looking at this, and what can be done? We've all highlighted the problems of the World Test Championship and the way it's gone about, but what's the solutions?
Well, I think it's too far down the road. I mean, you've heard me say this before. I think the time to really think carefully about these matters was when franchise cricket started to, make its weight felt around 2008 when the IPL came in. It seemed obvious to me what was going to be the end game here, but the administrators didn't foresee things, and they've just been kind of asleep at the wheel. So I think it's too far gone now. I think there's a generational shift here from a game that was dominated by international cricket to a game that will be dominated by domestic cricket. And we're kind of in the middle or towards the far end of that generational shift. And I don't see it changing, because I don't see that there's a will to change it. People seem just to be happy to let market forces run riot, as it were, without any without kind of changing it. So I can't see how it will change. I don't say that's what I would like to see happen. I still think a vibrant, competitive global game over the formats is preferable to wall franchise cricket. But I'm afraid that's the route we're going down, and I can't see that really changing. I mean, I regret that, but that's how it is. That's
DK said 5 Test series, India, Australia, England. Well, that's exactly what we've got coming up. You've been sitting down with the Indian captain, Shubman Gill, a long interview. What did you get out of that interview? What style of captain do you think he'll be? And what's the mood in the camp like?
I really don't think he has realized the enormity of what it means to be a test captain for India as of now. He is walking into the lion's den. Coming to England as a cricketing nation is not easy. And there have been many a team with superstars who have come in and have found it really, really hard. Luckily for Shubman Gill, I think the England bowling attack is a very vulnerable attack. That is the only positive I see. They're going to be put under pressure with the bat. When I say bat, I mean England batting will definitely put the Indian team under pressure. But the bowling is an area that is still a work in progress for England, and that could very well play into India's hands.
And is he going to bat 4? I mean, he's going to step into the Kohli Tendulkar shoes, is he?
I
I
asked
mean,
him straight up front, and he gave me an answer saying we'll play the intra squad match and then we'll decide, which was surprising because I thought they would know exactly what their first first batting order would be walking into that first test. So saying something like that means that they are still not sure what the batting order is. But I would think he's going to bat at 4 because KL Rahul has opened even in the practice matches. So it's going to be KL, Yashasvi, Sai Sudarshan, Shubman Gill, and at 5 it could be Rishabh Pant, 6 Karun Nair is what I think it could be.
I was going to ask that. Do you think they'll play all their batters? Or do you think there'll be 2 or 3 all-rounders in that middle order that may weaken their batting but give them another bowling option? And which would you do in England? Leeds flat, sun out. Which would you do?
You have to pick 20 wickets, Nas. So I would go with the top 6 that I just told you: 5 Rishabh Pant, 6 Karun Nair, 7 Jadeja, and then 4 bowlers with Shardul at number 8. He is the bowling all rounder. I just wish they don't go the batting all rounder, which would mean they go Nitish Kumar Reddy, which I don't think is required right now. I think Shardul, the bowling all rounder, is more valuable in England, especially on a flat deck, and he can give a bit of a breather to the rest of the 3 fast bowlers: Bumrah, Siraj, and should be Prasid, considering he's picked up 6 wickets in the last test.
Half England, Bethell at 3 for you, or Pope? What would you do, and what do you think they will do?
well, you know what I would have done? I'd have brought Bethell back before the Zimbabwe test and played him there, and that would have been a very, very simple call. I suspect what they'll do now is give Pope a go because it's just 170 against Zimbabwe, so I'm not sure how you can drop him after that. But although it seems to be slightly delaying the inevitable at some point, but these things tend to work themselves out, don't they? And then I suppose their attack will be Tong, Cars, Woakes, Stokes, and Bashir. That was what I imagine England's attack will be, and they'll be desperately hoping that they can get Atkinson fit, Archer fit, and Wood fit.
Now, I want to ask you all a question. There's one name that's very interesting there, Chris Woakes. You all both know that he won't make it to the Ashes squad. So do you think this series could be a bit of a prep with the future in mind, or they're going to be winning what is in front of them?
I think they're going to want to win what's in front of them, but always with half an eye on what's coming. But they'll want what they call a complementary attack. So if you've got the likes of Tong and Cars, who've had injury concerns, who are perhaps a bit quicker, shorter spell type bowlers, they're going to want one person who, well, Woakes is a swinger. The other 2 are kind of seamers anyway, but somebody who can, put in longer spells, whether that is Sam Cook, who played that one game against Zimbabwe, but I think it's more likely to be Woakes. He played in that Lions game, did pretty well, got wickets. The thing about Woakes is he usually needs a game or 2 after a layoff. He gets better for the run. Now he's had that game, those games against India A. So I imagine they'll feel he's just about right for the test match. So I think they'll go with Woakes. What do you reckon, Ness?
Well, I think actually they still got Woakes in mind for the Ashes simply because it is doing a little bit more in Australia. And if they do with the DK plan, because DK is now planning for Australia as well as RCB and everyone else, and they leave a little bit more grass on it, it does bring Woakes into it. So, and with all the other injury concerns, and you just may want that depth to your batting. So I don't think they've written off Woakes, and he
Do you
bowled
think it's
pretty
doing
well.
a bit more with the kookaburra in Australia?
Have I mentioned that before?
Each time you've said that on this podcast.
Well, I think it is. So I think that brings Woakes more into it, and he looked okay and in rhythm in the Lions game that I watched. So I would play Woakes, which leads me on to Jasprit Bumrah. Unusual leading on, but from one player coming back to another. You spoke to Bumrah, DK. How do you think they will handle him? Is it just a case of play him until he says, no, I need a rest? Or do you think they've already got a pre-plan, this is what we're going to do with Jasprit?
I have a feeling from hearing whatever I heard from both of them speak that he's been told to play 3 test matches. Now, you know how it is in international cricket. Suppose the pressure is on, there's a must-win game, things could change. But I feel he'll be playing 1, 2, and 4. These are the numbers that I look, because between these tests, there's enough and more break. And now, when you go to the fourth test match, and if you are 2-1 behind or 1-2 ahead, whatever it could be, I wouldn't be surprised if the fifth test match becomes a bit of a request to him saying, please, can you think about it? But I feel that's what India team will do.
If you had one bit of advice to give the Indian team, you've been over here. You've just said it was quite a lot in that comment you made about Shubman that you don't feel he quite realizes what lies ahead for being Indian Test match captain. What bit of advice would you give this side without Rohit, without Virat? You know, there's a bit of inexperience. What about an England tour?
First bit of information that I'd want to give Shubman Gill is put your captaincy hat on only while fielding. Allow the coaches to do their thing behind doors. Focus on your batting. It is imperative for Shubman Gill to score, to have the respect in that dressing room. It's out there saying in Sena countries, as an Indian batter, his average is not something that he's going to be proud of. So he needs to get runs in that first test at the start so that he doesn't put more pressure on himself walking into the next test. That is the first thing I would tell Shubman Gill. Be the best batter you can be. Captaincy will always come. There are enough and more players who could help you, the likes of KL, Rishabh Pant, Jasprit Bumrah, who all led Indian teams at different points of time to guide you. But with the batting, it's completely up to you. So focus on that. Make sure you get your runs. You're capable of it. In Leeds, it's a good venue. The sun is out. It's a great place to bat on. It's a good place to get runs. The second thing with the Indian team is don't get caught up at the tempo at which the England team bats. It will look sexy when it goes well. It'll look silly when it doesn't. You stick to the tempo that you are good at as an individual. Don't get caught up in that rut.
And your coach, Gautam Gambhir, we know what Brendan McCullum is all about. It's right there in front of your eyes. What is his coaching style and philosophy? What do you think he has brought to this Indian side?
I feel tactically Gauti is a very, very good coach. Man management is the area that I'm sure is what he'd be looking at. But the one thing about him is he's always looking out for his players. He wants to make sure it's comfortable. Even in the KKR dressing room, when I spoke about him, all they said was he was always there for the players, which is massive. What I feel at times is the the way he is aggressive as a captain, you can't be as a coach. Here, you're managing different individuals, and once you let them out in the park, you got to trust them to do the job for you once they get onto the park. Now, that is the challenge across 5 days because there is going to be peaks and troughs. You need to find a way to stay neutral and calm throughout it.
Prediction time. I know you hate predictions, and because you picked me up on mentioning the Kookaburra Baldine a bit more, prediction for the India-England series.
England will win because they don't lose many series at home. If you look at the recent past, England's record is very strong at home. So given the changes in the Indian team, given the absence of some absolutely top-notch players, of course, India have got great youngsters coming through. They'll have a very strong pipeline of talent. But I still feel it's not so easy to move on from players of that stature and that quality without one or two little stumbles. So if you put those two things together, England's home advantage and the Indian team in a little bit of transition, then England to win for me.
DK?
I was always of the opinion that it could be England 3-1. But after seeing their bowling attack and the number of injuries that they've had, I feel this could be 2-all actually.
I mean, could you sit on that fence just a little bit more? I know you're on a sofa or bed in one of your 9 bedrooms, wherever you're staying. Could you just get off the fence a little bit more, please?
For once in this podcast, I told you a fact that I've thought of, but you're not willing to believe me. Yeah, I will discuss this with you. Right now, I can't argue, but July 29th, I'll have this discussion when that podcast happens. 2-all is my guess.
2-all. Well, you told me in the World Test Championship that you thought England would win and that you would be the next coach of India. So listen, thank you very much, DK, for joining us. I know we take the mick, but as I said to you that first morning, me and Ather, absolutely thrilled what happened with RCB and what you did. I know you absolutely love that job. So many congratulations. We will catch you Thursday night for dinner if you grace us with your presence. Friday morning Leeds. And talking of Leeds, before this podcast, I caught up with Jamie Smith, who was just about to jump in his car and make the journey up the M1. Jamie, thanks for joining us. Where are you? How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, I'm at home, ready to travel up for the start of the series.
When do you travel? We're recording this on Monday morning. When do you have to arrive at Leeds?
Yeah, it'll be in a couple of hours. We'll travel up. Thankfully, I've got my family coming with me, so it's a bit of a different journey, packing the car up and everything like that to head up. So it's a long enough journey for us up to Leeds, which will be probably harder than the game itself.
Yeah, you got a little one on tow at the moment. It's a lot has happened to you, haven't you? In the last 18 months, 2 years, from coming in as a Surrey player to now playing for England in Test match cricket, playing in all formats, becoming a dad. How are you coping with it all? Because when you first came in, you said the intensity was fairly draining. Have you learned to live and cope with that intensity?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, there's been a lot of change from basically this time last year. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that have sort of presented themselves. Also the challenges. I think what's changed a little bit this year was the conversations with the ECB around sort of managing game time. I think I played 3 out of the first 4 championship games. I had a game off, which allowed me to get away, spend some time with the family, and also recharge, work on some fitness stuff, them sort of things. Whereas last year I'd sort of come in on the back of 9 back-to-back championship games and some T20 blasts. So I feel in a lot better place that even though I've played some games this year for England as well, I feel a lot more rested and fresh going into this Test series.
Before we look ahead to the series, let's go back to those one days. You have to be on your toes with this England management. But when did you know you were opening the batting? You'd never done it in List A cricket. And did that phase you in any way, or did you think this is just the next step for me?
I think I found out actually during the Loughborough camp we had before Zimbabwe that it was an option that was floated around that potentially that's what you'd be doing. When Baz sort of said that, I don't know if I had necessarily believed him as I was sort of thinking I definitely could do a job and I'd like to do it, but anyway I can sort of get in the team. First and foremost, to play 3 formats is something I want to do. So anyway I could have got in was that, and if the gap seemed to be at the top of the order, so from there it was sort of working out the best way to go about it. I had a small taste of an opportunity in a Champions Trophy at 3 where I didn't take it. My the tempo of my innings probably was way too high for. I sort of came out all guns blazing and didn't pace my innings very well, and I felt that as the series went on, became sort of more comfortable and sort of playing a better sort of style that I like to play, where I don't feel as though I'm trying to hit every ball for 4 or 6. You're just sort of playing the game naturally and still looking to be positive, but not reckless.
You played under some very fine captains at Surrey and at England. What did you make of Harry Brook? Early days, but what's his captaincy style?
Yeah, he was fantastic. I think it's pretty obvious for everyone to see that he sort of wasn't letting the game drift. Being out in the field for 50 overs was a new experience for me. I haven't done that in a long time. And yeah, it's a long time. You sort of know that the game can sort of drift, but the way he was sort of changing fields, changing his bowlers around, especially, always looking to be positive and take wickets, even though at times we might have gone for some runs, but it was always in the hope of picking up wickets, which will stem the flow of runs for them. And he did that fantastically across both formats, and that's not an easy thing to do, especially in the way that white ball cricket is now. It's pretty. I wouldn't want to be a bowler at all. The way that guys are sort of striking the ball and coming at people, but the way he sort of sticks to his guns, backs his bowlers throughout, I thought was fantastic.
And the side must be in a really good place. I know it's a different format, but you had that win against Zimbabwe in Test cricket, and then a really good period in white ball cricket as a side. Do you think that confidence is transferable? You arrive; those who are in both camps arrive at Leeds in a good place.
Yeah, it definitely does. Anytime that there's obviously that crossover you speak about now. There's a few players that are in both sides. I think anytime that people can come in with runs and wickets under their belt, and also games. I felt for me the the best thing was to still be playing games. Obviously, you don't have as much of a focus on this series while you're playing against the West Indies, but it's almost a good thing because you're not looking too far ahead, and it's not sort of draining you mentally before you started. You've not played the 5 tests before you've even played the first. So we're going up to Leeds quite fresh in that sense that, there's some good changeover to some red ball cricket, and I feel like the guys are in a great place for that.
And looking forward to that. And this week in particular, leading up to first ball, you didn't keep in the white ball stuff. Are you someone that likes to catch balls every single day? Would you have done some keeping throughout that series? And how will you go about preparation this week leading up to the test match?
Yeah, I think, preparation wise, we have a good 3 days worth of training. It's just fine tuning the slight technical differences, and I guess a couple of minor changes that I want to just implement for test cricket. But not too many things change within my batting across formats. I tried to keep it quite simple as possible. So it'd be nice to hit a red ball for a change, and then just doing some keeping work and getting that on top of that as well, ready for the start of the series. Obviously, I've seen the weather and it looks quite warm, so probably not doing too much to again burn out for before we've already started.
And batting wise, how do you go about prepping for an attack that you've not played against? I don't think you've faced any of their bowlers, and Bumrah in particular with his unorthodox action. Are you someone who likes to watch videos, or do you just talk to players, or are you just best when fresh?
It'll sort of be a little mixture between them all. I'll obviously speak to a few of the guys that have faced them and get their opinion. Obviously, as you said, it's Bumrah and people like that can be slightly unique in the way they go about things. It's not orthodox that you've seen, many times before. Thankfully that I'm in the position where I'm batting a number 7 that I can also get quite a good look, and Headingley is one of the places where hopefully if he bowls from behind, or you can get actually quite a good view of them before you've even started, which is slightly different than you normally get. But yeah, sort of just I don't want to do too much into them. You sort of want to focus on as much as what you can, how you're going to score your runs. But be nice, yeah, against people you've not seen, even if it's in the warm-up of the day of the game, just getting a quick look and seeing, just their run-ups, any differences that you might have to face.
And it's the start of 2 iconic series, really. Obviously, England, India, everything that the history of that series, and then the Ashes. After the World Test Championship final, a lot of people's attention has gone forward to the Ashes. How important is it as a team you stay in the present? Because this series, India, England, is so important, and the start of the next World Test Championship cycle.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's almost the perfect time to sort of play India, I'd say, or a nation as big as India, because you can't look too far ahead. You can only take it one day at a time because they're such a good side. You can't say, oh, we'll get these, the test summer out the way and we're already on the plane over to Australia. You can't do that. They're such a good side. They've got so much depth. Anyone they bring in are fantastic players. So you have to be on it, from ball one up in Leeds to the last day at the Oval, and that's actually a great thing for this side to be playing a team as good as India's. Test our skills before, as you said, before what's to come. But it'll be nice to challenge ourselves against one of the best teams, definitely.
Well, Jamie, it's great seeing you doing so well across formats. Good luck in that test match. We'll see you Friday morning at Headingley. And to our listeners out there, we will catch up after the test match, and we'll look back at Headingley and look ahead to the rest of this series.